Hello and welcome to another Generation YT episode. I am your host Christian, and today my guest is Scott Freeman. Scott is an indie rock artist from UK, and he also runs a YouTube channel with over 1,000 subscribers. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
No problem, man. So your music is very interesting. I can actually hear the Cure in your music.
Oh yeah,
I was listening. No, really. I was listening to some uh, albums of yours. Being single.
yeah.
That's mm, feel like being single, something like that. What's the name of the album?
Yeah. So the second album's called "Have Fun Being Single."
Have fun
Uh,
being single. Fuck yeah. So like really, I hear Cure, especially in Tetris. Tetris was like very influenced. Let me know. So you are professional musician. At least I consider you a professional musician. Uh, have your music, your first steps in music started, or even better, how would your first music teacher how would describe you?
How would my first music teacher
Yeah.
describe me? Um, Proactive. I my first music teacher was called Mr. Elvey, and I went to a school with a big music emphasis. And so in music classes, he didn't really teach like the normal music curriculum. He kind of just let us go off into practice rooms and jam around on the instruments.
Mm.
So he gave us a lot of freedom, and I kind of took full advantage of that. So I'd be in those practice rooms all the whole lesson, and all the break times, all the lunch times. Like I'd even try and sneak out of other lessons so I could come back and just play the practice rooms. And sometimes he'd let me sometimes be like, no, you have to go to physics, Scott. So yeah, no,
Uh,
he was great, really encouraging.
that's cool. So, what age were you when you started going to
I, I
lessons and
was
everything?
I was 9 when I
So you
started
were
writing
that's like
songs.
very very early when you started
Yeah.
writing, or when you started learning songs with you.
So I started writing songs. Yeah, the story is I watched the film Wayne's World when I
Uh,
was 9, and
uh-huh.
yeah, yeah,
That's explains a lot.
it explains a lot. Yeah. And so I watched Wayne's World, and there's the scene early on where they listen to Bohemian Rhapsody in the car. And there was something about that song that just caught my 9 year old brain and set it on fire. And suddenly I was like, I need to write songs and play them to people. And so for the first 3 years or so, I just heard songs. Songs just kind of came to me out of nowhere. I had no way of recording them. I couldn't play an instrument. I didn't know anything about music. All I knew is like I had these songs, and I'd start singing these songs in my head to my mum and be like, "What's this song? I keep hearing it in my head." And she was like, that song doesn't exist." And so I went years and years building this catalog of songs in my head, and then finally I was like, right, I've got to learn an instrument so I can start putting it down on tape. So one by one, I learned a few instruments, and boom, I'm still doing it today, I guess.
Sounds perfect. So you were like that's very very young
Hmm.
age. Uh, what were your first music genres that you listened to? What actually you mentioned now Queen and Bohemian Rhapsody. What others were like artists that actually got you into music?
Okay, so Queen was a big one at first. And then I was kind of what, 11, 12, around the new metal era when that was happening. So I was very much into Linkin Park and that kind of
Mm,
thing. But around the era, Queens of Stone Age brought out Songs for the Deaf, and so I was obsessed with that. The Chili Peppers By the Way album, I loved that.
uh,
And I quickly got into Nirvana and the 90s grunge era. And then as time went on, I went further back in time. But at the start, it was very much Queen, and then those kind of alt rock new metal bands from the early noughties, end of the 90s era. Those were kind of my earliest inspirations.
So you're another one who mentioned Nirvana.
Yeah.
Nirvana, so influential. Whoever I talked
So
to,
influential. Yeah.
everyone says Nirvana was one of the first, definitely. That's no brainer.
Hmm.
So you're songwriting all your life by now, like bigger part. How
Hmm.
your process of songwriting goes? Do you have some routine, or is it just like on the go? Like, oh, I got something, I'm gonna make a hook today.
It's all sorts of things. So I mentioned when I
Awesome.
was 9 and I heard these songs out of nowhere come to me. That still happens sometimes when I'm doing something completely not related to music. I'll be going for a walk, or I'll be hanging out with a friend, or driving somewhere. Suddenly a song just comes to me and I go, oh, that's great. And it's really annoying when it happens when I'm driving, because then I have to pull over, get out my
Yeah.
phone and like record this little demo, and then 10 hours later, when I've got a guitar in my hand, try to figure out what it was that came to me. So it happens that way. It can happen a whole bunch of ways. Sometimes I just pick up my guitar and I'll just kind of jump around the place, thrashing around on my
Mhm.
acoustic, and a melody idea will come to me, or a lyric. Sometimes I will just hear a funny line, like someone will say something and it sounds like a song lyric to me, and I go, wow, that needs to be a song. So I'll write it down on my little note-taking app on my phone, and then later on I'll develop it. I did that recently for a title that I came up with 2-3 years ago. So sometimes they sit with me for a long time. And then, yeah, sometimes songs, when I sit down and write them, they happen, boom, flash in the pan, here they are. And then other times they can take place over a matter of years. The first track on Have Fun Being Single, which you brought up earlier, that's that track, Superton Electrifier. That song I didn't finish till I was in the studio, and I'd been writing it for 6 years
Wow.
prior to that moment. 6 years I've been writing it little bit by little bit, and I thought when I went into the studio, I'll finally nail it, and just about got there.
They're looking for that. That's something that missing the.
Mm,
Yeah, I can imagine
yeah.
that. That's the process. I made one demo song, and it took me about a month to make it. And I was just like,
Wow. Yeah.
but literally, I was just like, I want to make a song. Like, I know it's gonna be shit. It's like first song ever. I just want to lay it down. But like, definitely, it took me like 3-4 weeks to finish it and to record.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I can imagine like 6 years. That's a whole process.
Mm.
Yeah. What's the craziest, like, what's the craziest way that you got inspiration for a song?
The craziest way I got
Yeah,
inspiration for a
you have
song.
something like, you know Katy Perry's "I Kissed the Girl."
Mm.
Her producer said that he actually heard two parents talking about somebody's daughter, mentioned that she kissed the girl, and
Okay.
he overheard that conversation, and that was the song about a month later. So
Yeah.
don't have any specific stories, weird.
I'm trying to think. I mean, there are some I've so there's a song on my first album, Season of Blue, and the track's called Only Time Will Tell. And the chorus hook is please don't let me be the girl you remember to forget, which sounds like a lyric, but it's something that someone actually said to me once, and
Uh-huh.
in quite a heated moment, and that was like a really crazy one, because I was like very much in that moment, which was not a great moment. But then at the same time in my head, I was like, that's so going to be a song later. so so stuff like that. But now I'm trying to think of some really bonkers stuff. I don't know. I'm a bit more analytical these days about my songwriting. I'm trying to be a bit more experimental with structure, um, and so I don't know. I mess around with things that way. But in terms of initial inspiration, I just don't know. I don't know. Maybe as the interview goes on, I'll remember something, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head right now.
Do you experiment with new genres, or it's like generally like everything?
So I when I'm writing a song, I try to think, what's the narrative, what's the story of the song, and I don't think every song should be a full story, so that there's act one, act two, act three, like there would be in a film or a TV show. I kind of think with songwriting it can be that, but sometimes it's just the song, the lyrics, it's just an emotion. It's just kind of throwing an emotion at you and exploring that, rather than being a story. So sometimes I'll have songs where the emotion is kind of anticlimactic. So I try to make the ending of the song anticlimactic, so it kind of ends before you think it's supposed to end, and it kind of leaves you a
Suddenly.
bit frustrated. Yeah.
Uh,
So I like I
nice.
like doing stuff like that.
Mm,
But in terms of genre,
sounds interesting.
yeah, I'm getting more into jazz uh, as time goes on, which is completely unexpected. In a way, I mean, my granddad was a jazz musician who used to tour around Europe, and so I guess it's in my blood a little bit. But I've only recently started getting into Miles Davis and things like that. So I don't know, maybe that'll show up in my music someday. Who knows?
You got any jazz influences?
Yeah. Yeah, as I said, I mean, Miles
Miles
Davis
Davis.
has definitely become um, a favorite recently. I really like listening to his stuff. Um, but that's about it really. I'm gonna start. I mean, I'm listening to a bit of John
Mm-hmm.
Coltrane and
Mm-hmm.
getting into his stuff. So it's a lot of older jazz. Um, but
What's
yeah,
so inspiring with Miles Davis and his his jazz and his approach to
it
jazz?
takes me somewhere. It takes me somewhere. It takes me to a different place. So the same way that Bohemian Rhapsody did all those years ago
Mm-hmm.
and continues to do. When I listen to his music, it I don't know, it soothes me while also taking me up into space. And I really love that about music. So whenever I can find that new music, I'll jump onto it. I mean, another band recently I really got into are called Moon Hooch. I don't know if you've ever come across them.
Oh, but I'll put it down.
Yeah, really cool. Two saxophones and a drummer, and one of the saxophone players
Really?
has a traffic cone that comes out of the horn of his saxophone.
Really?
Yeah, it's a really insane sound. I saw them on the Tiny Desk concerts. One of my collaborators, um, my friend Tom, he turned me onto the Tiny Desk concerts and showed me Moon Hooch, and my life has never been the same since. So definitely recommend.
Definitely sounds interesting and inspiring.
Mm.
Where do you find all that motivation? What keeps you going into the music, in
Yeah.
writing songs? Is there any reward to ratio?
Okay.
How it goes?
Yeah. Okay. So for me, I'm just constantly creating stuff. When I'm not writing songs, I'm writing prose or plays or I'm always writing. I've always been like that since I was little. I don't know. I can't stop myself. If I go a day without creating something, it's weird. It feels weird to me. Whenever I get spare time, I'm sitting down and making something, whether
Mm,
it's writing some lyrics or writing something else. And so I never have to jazz myself up to write anything because I'm just constantly writing. And I can't remember a period in my life where I wasn't. I'm weird, I guess. I just love making stuff, and yeah, mate, I'm scared that one day I'll get to a point where I'm not like that. Uh, I
wow.
don't know if that could ever happen, but yeah, that's just the way
Yeah,
I am. I guess it's strange.
that's interesting. So you're gigging musician
Hmm.
for, you said, you mentioned somewhere last decade, so let's like 10
Yeah.
years you are gigging and touring around. What is your go-to equipment when you are
Uh,
gigging?
Okay. So it
You
depends
play,
whether
you're multi instrumentalist, so I guess there is
yeah.
acoustic, electric, and everything. Are you geek about
Yeah,
equipment?
yeah. So I mostly, when I'm playing as a solo acoustic act, I use my Yamaha APX 500 that I've affectionately named Lucille. Um, and
Really
and
cute.
I yeah, yeah. And I very much love my acoustic. I've had Lucille since my last year of secondary school, so that was like 2006, and barely holding together. I don't know if you've seen any of my recent videos with my acoustic in it, but there's just massive holes and gashes and things
Mm.
in there where I've just been peeling away the paint and the wood.
That's cool thing actually. That's like Willie Nelson's.
Yeah,
Was it
I,
trigger? Like, he
yeah,
got a
yeah, yeah.
hole in the body.
Yeah, so
That
I don't know how much that affects the sound, but it
uh,
looks cool. So,
definitely it definitely gives something specific, something
hmm.
unique. Like wouldn't know. How about your electric guitar?
So in terms
You
of
play an
electric,
electrics?
yeah, I do love playing electric. I went away from electric for many years
Mm.
when I was just going around doing solo gigs, but in having the studio and making full band productions more, and obviously working on the albums, I'd play electric as well. I use my Gibson Les Paul Studio and my Fender Telecaster Deluxe, and they're quite similar in sound. I usually use the Fender Live because it's a lighter guitar, and I like jumping about
Sure.
a bit. And the Gibson is so heavy.
Yeah, I know.
Um, yeah, they're so heavy.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
That gives them that's something, I guess. Like
yeah. Why are they
you,
so heavy?
well, I wouldn't know really, but
Yeah.
if so many musicians use it, probably it's not too heavy, I guess.
Mm,
Like if one Jimmy Page could hold it for like a couple of hours playing, so yeah,
yeah.
Jimmy Page is 50 kilos, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know, maybe he was pumping iron backstage. I don't know.
yeah, he was pumping something, but
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
definitely.
Mm.
What advice would you give to young musicians that want to go professional? They want to try something on their own.
Don't do it.
What's the,
No.
what's the thing that what's the thing that you would like you known when you started your
Something
career?
I would have liked to have known when I started.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Big question. Big question. Um, uh, Something I'd tell young people starting out. I mean, it's different. When I was starting out, YouTube was still years away. And so the only way it felt like to get going was to start gigging and do that. But today, if I was saying something to someone today, it'd be something maybe more towards doing music online. I don't know. I guess I'd say to someone just gig a lot and be great live. I think that
Mm.
says a lot because I've been repeatedly booked for shows because I put on a good live show at the end of the day. I mean, I like to think I write good songs, but when I'm live, I really give it absolutely everything I have so that hopefully the crowd has a good time and that they'll hire me back. So I think a lot of people just think, oh, I get up there, play my tunes, and that's it. But no, actually, you have to be an entertainer as well. So I'd say, yeah, to anyone who wants to get started before you do YouTube or anything like that, like get really good live. And to do that, you need to play live a lot. And you need to, if you're doing original music, write lots of songs because your first batch might not be very good, but your second batch might be better. So just the more you do it, the better you get. But yeah, be kick ass live, I guess.
Okay, so that human experience is important.
Really, yeah.
That's the, so. How did you get the idea to start YouTube channel? Did you see it just as another platform when you can place your music, or you knew there's gonna be something big in the
Uh,
future?
so I started taking YouTube seriously in January 2019. I had a YouTube channel that I would randomly upload to every year since going back to about 2012. I would just, yeah, I would upload things every now and then. But then in 2018, I did a big tour with my backing band, the Tokyo Sex Whales, and we went around the UK. We played some shows, and some of them were good, some of them were bad, and a lot of them were in between. But we played at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and we were all really excited about it because, I mean, I, I would just, I have family from Scotland, so I would go up to Scotland in the summertime just to go to the Fringe Festival because it's such a big deal when you get artists from all around the world there. And we were on the streets, we were flyering, we were doing everything we could to get people to come along to our show, and no one came along. And it was heartbreaking. And the most heartbreaking thing about it was that there was the venue part in this little alcove, and then in the next room there was a bar, and the bar was heaving. You know, there was so many people in the bar. I'm surprised that someone didn't fall through the door accidentally into the venue. You know, it was so packed. And I went through and I was like, hey guys, we've come from the bottom of England all the way up to Edinburgh to play to you. Please come just like listen to one song. And people were like, oh, we've never heard of you. Like, why should we? And I didn't know what to say to them. I was like, well, because we're fun and we put on a good show. And no one came through. And so we played a really good show to no one. And it broke my heart. And I felt like it took so much time and energy to book that show. And I thought, what's the point of doing this? You know, we're going around gigging, and you really never know what you're going to get. I want to find a new avenue of getting my music out there. And so for years, you know, I always said I'll do YouTube more seriously at some point. And I thought this is the time to do it. So January 2019, I started out with 51 subscribers, and I just posted twice a week and kept building and building and building on it, and kept doing it. And my goal was to find new fans. It was to connect with new people and not have to drive to another country to do it, you know. and it worked. I mean, I kept gigging after that and kept touring and things like that. But I didn't feel the need to go as extreme with that before as now. I was building YouTube, and you know, it's still I'm still on a journey with it, but you know, we're getting somewhere now.
Oh, that's cool. So you mentioned you were playing in front of nobody, empty venue.
Yeah,
how how was that? I believe that was one of bad experience, but
yeah, it was a
like
real bad experience.
how do you do that? How do you push yourself to do a gig in like empty avenue?
Well,
I mean, obviously there are contracts, and you need to do gig because you you said you're gonna do
yeah,
it. I mean,
yeah.
that probably makes a big part of it. But how do you mentally, like in your with yourself, how you get clear with, okay, I'm gonna play here with like maybe 5 people? If
Yeah.
how how do you those decisions and
Okay.
moments?
So I guess as a musician, you know, if you're out there playing gigs and you've never played to an empty room, then you're doing something wrong. Uh, you should have at least played a few empty rooms in your time, because you learn from it. It's a humbling experience because you have all these expectations of how the night's going to go. It's going to be wild. Everyone's going to be singing along. I'm going to jump in the crowd. I'm going to do some Kurt Cobain moves. I'm going to smash everything. You know, you think every night's going to be like that. And then sometimes it's just mothballs. It's just, there's tumbleweeds. There's no one there. And to, you have to start getting something else out of it. You know, you go, well, I'm not getting any audience interaction, but what am I getting out of it tonight? Well, it's a live rehearsal. You know, we're getting to rehearse as a band, or me just as a solo act on stage, and you know, we're getting to rehearse in a different context, so that's good. And you know, even though there's no audience here, there's someone at the bar maybe the manager's there at the back, the sound man's there. So we're going to play for those people who'd be here anyway. And hopefully, if we put on a good show still, they'll have a good evening. And maybe they'll tell the manager or whoever, like, oh, that band, they were great. They played to no one and they were like one of our best bands here, you know? So, yeah, it's trying to find something different in it. But then also, I used to read a lot of band biographies growing up. And one of the ones I read was about the Doors, who are one of my favorite bands. And Jim Morrison was asked in the biography, you know, why do you go nuts in, you know, to empty rooms? Because sometimes even the Doors would play empty rooms. And people would be like, why were you going wild tonight? There was no one here. And he goes, you never know when it's going to be your last show, man. You know, so you might as well give it your all. And I read that, and I was like, I like that. Yeah, I like that. So I try to embody that, and try to get something out of it. There you go.
Do you make it more personal and more intimate if there's like a small crowd of people? Because you know that, like, if you're playing for 10 people in like big venue, do you make it like more personal, more intimate? Because it's not always that you can like enjoy the music in those circumstances. Like I was once it was 7-8 years ago, and Depeche Mode in Croatia. So they played in front of maybe 1,000 people, maybe 1,400 the top. But that was the show was amazing, and it looked like they came out and they saw like, okay, this is half full. Well, let's do it good. Let's do it better than like full venues.
Yeah.
Do you think that, like, do you have that feeling if you're like, you see a small group of people, you think, oh, I'm gonna do something special for those guys here because they are here this moment tonight, and you can repeat that?
Yeah, definitely. So sometimes those are the most memorable gigs, you know, because it was as you say, a very intimate set, and you share that experience, whereas with a big gig you can get lost in the crowd, and it's a less personal experience. When it's just you and a couple of guys in the crowd, you know, you can still have a really good time. So yeah.
Mm. Okay, we talked about some bad experiences. What's the best things when it comes to gigging and touring? Like,
The
what's
best
it what
things.
yeah, what makes you fucking jumping and be yourself on tours?
So, I mean, when you come out on stage and the audience they're ready for you. You know, if you're walking out on stage and the audience are cheering before you've even picked up your guitar, you know you're in for a good time. So that's great. A great audience participation is amazing. You know, I get so much out of it, and it brings more out of me when I get to play to a really good crowd. And you have a lot of fun with them. And I spend so much time crafting my songs, and uh, going over each word, each line, trying to make it as good as it can be and as catchy as it can be, so that when I get in front of a good audience, that they'll sing along. And when I've had audiences sing my words back, oh my word, it blows my mind. It blows my mind. I mean, I write lots of different choruses. I write ones um, which are kind of just me making noises. And because I know that if I play that in a pub or a small venue, it's easy for people to sing along on. But it's the choruses where there's a lot of words, and I know people are still picking up on it, or they've taken the CD home and they've learned the words, stuff like that. It's really cool. So yeah, getting to interact with people during the show, but then after show is really cool as well. When people come up to the merch stall and they want to buy a t-shirt or a CD or something, and they just want to say a nice word. That's the best thing, because you're really putting yourself out there on stage, and so to get a really positive response on and off of the stage with the crowd, that's the best thing. So, and yeah, I guess I'd say that.
Fair enough. So you're in UK and you're in perpetual lockdown, just as we in Ireland here. Now, this is a big bummer. How lockdown changed your everyday life? You know, venues are closed, pubs are closed, like musicians all over the world are in extremely difficult situation. How that affects you in affected you in a recent last year?
So it's officially, as of today, been a day since my last day of work. Before, yeah, I can believe that. I checked the calendar today, and I wasn't even looking for it, and I was realised that I was like, wow, that's I can't believe that. So,
Like,
I mean, it was everything kind of, yeah, everything shut down, and it sucked straight away for everyone everywhere. And you could feel that, it just walking through
yeah,
a supermarket or just walking through the high street or something, you could just feel that, just everyone kind of just feeling that weight, that heaviness. So that's been the most difficult part, is the kind of day-to-day heaviness of it. But I started building this recording studio that I'm in right now in autumn 2019, and I had it
wow.
ready, coincidence or not, the week before we went into lockdown in the
Oh,
UK.
fuck.
So I was like, I've got this place ready. I've got my bunker to, hunker
Yeah,
down in and just
yeah.
make stuff. So I was like, I could either get really depressed and sit on the sofa for a year or however long it's going to be, and just not do anything, or I can take this opportunity, get my YouTube channel over 1,000 subscribers, and just make my content as good as possible, get better at recording, get better at songwriting, write a musical, which I'm in the middle of doing, and just pursue every possible creative avenue. Because as I said, I'm always creating things and having to go to work and things like that. Even though I teach music for a living and I do enjoy my job. Um, it means there's more time there and less time writing songs. So I was like, well, I, I'm not spending X amount of hours a week teaching, so that's more hours writing songs. So the last year has been depressing in a lot of ways, but it has also been the most creative year of my life. It's ridiculous the amount of stuff I've made, the stuff that I've done. I can't believe it. So when this all ends, which is hopefully soon, I can at least look back and go, I made the best of the bad situation. So yeah, yeah.
That's great. That's great. By the way, where do you see music after all this is over? Do you think we'll get back to big venues and huge crowds there, or you think we are? It's gonna be something change drastically
Mm,
after pandemic.
mm. Okay, so how are things going to change? Well, I think online streaming video and things like this are going to be more commonplace now, because I think we've all adapted to it. More people having conversation over Zoom,
People
and
got used
other,
to it. Yeah.
yeah, people have really got used to it, and it's become part of so many of our daily lives. It's going to affect so many different industries, and
Mm.
there'll be more bands who don't gig and just live stream them playing in a rehearsal room or something like that, and there'll be an audience there for it. I think that's going to be a thing. I think, yeah, live streaming is just going to continue. It's just going to continue, and that's going to be a big thing. I think we will get back to gigs. I think,
Mhm.
there have been some venues that have been forced to close their doors here in the UK, which is sad. But I think we will get back to it. It will take a while for people to get comfortable, but I mean, hopefully towards the end of this year, 2022, we'll be getting back to how it was. But live streaming, I think, is going to be the big thing that continues forwards.
Mm. Okay. So about streaming platforms, there's a lot of talk that like they don't favor the artists enough. And is the current program how they work, and is that good or bad? What's your opinion on streaming platform like Spotify, uh, iTunes, and others? I mean, there's a
Okay.
lot of some say like that's okay because artists get paid and everything in theory, but in practice we know that artists are heavily underpaid for streams on Spotify and everything. Do you think
Yeah.
that that has to be changed in the future to give artists more space and more opportunities to stream, or this is okay as it is?
I don't think things are good as they are with streaming services. I primarily use Bandcamp these days because I think it is a platform that really does support musicians. And last year, my followers on YouTube and off of YouTube were really supportive and bought my albums and things like that. And on Bandcamp, you can suggest how much you want to pay for something. So I had someone buy one of my albums for £25. I would never. I usually charge my albums for £5 at shows,
Oh,
and someone paid £25 for a digital copy. No physical disc, nothing.
yeah, yeah.
And so that was great. Now that's a platform that really I think gets
Mm,
behind
Bandcamp.
musicians. Bandcamp, they take a small percentage of that. So that £25, maybe they took off £2 or £3 and kept for themselves.
So that's like some
So
10% or something. Even
around
less,
ten
even
percent.
less actually.
Yeah.
Right.
And so but yeah, but still I'm making money off of that. With streaming, not so much. Spotify pays you know 10 times less than a penny. They pay you with dirt. That's what they
Yeah.
pay you with. It's rotten to the core. um and so it just, if Spotify was free to upload to, then I wouldn't mind, but I'm having to fork out £40 to put my album on Spotify and all these other platforms. And my first album only cracked about £50 in streaming sales last year, and it'd been up for 5 years. And I was like, I've just passed over the initial amount I spent. An investor, who invests for a living would say
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
bad
That's bad.
investment.
Very bad investment.
you know so so I didn't put my third album on there, and I won't be putting
Mm,
any more music up on the streaming services until it's free to upload. And it was, I mean, they did a beta test of uploading straight to Spotify a while ago. They did do that, but for some
yeah.
reason they didn't go through with it. And it's probably because the middleman, it's like, hey, no, we get paid uh
Yeah.
for
For
so
for
we
being middleman.
yeah, we get paid for being the middleman. We don't want to stop being the middleman. Don't take our job
Yeah.
away. Um, and I don't know what. Hopefully, one day it will be free to upload to Spotify. I mean, it's free to upload to YouTube. So why
Yeah.
isn't it free to upload to Spotify? I just don't know. Because then, yeah, if it's free to upload and you're making a fraction, you're earning less than a penny per stream, then who cares?
Yeah, exactly. You need
Yeah.
million plays to
Mm.
cover up. So we are now in that streaming and everything, but uh, what's your stance on copyright infringements? The last couple of years on YouTube, there was numerous cases where like literally everyone can claim copyright infringement to everyone. Did you have any problems with that, by the way? Did anyone claim your stuff?
Funnily enough, I released a Christmas song back in December, and I had some random artist from I think it was Korea, and yeah, YouTube said this section of the song has been stolen from this song, and I'd never heard
Like
this artist before ever.
literally just stolen, and not like it's similar to this part that it's stolen.
Yeah, there was just saying that, and I was just
Fucking
like,
hell.
and so and they were like, so they're gonna make money for every
Yeah.
stream you get. And they were like, would you like to dispute this? I was like, yes, I would. And so I went through the process, and about a week later, I was released from that copyright. Essentially, I put a dispute out saying, no, I've never heard of this artist before. My track really sounds nothing like their track. Not even this section, nothing at all. So please remove it. And the guys did. The guys did. Whoever that band was, or whoever's managing them, whatever label, they were like, yeah, this is silly. What's YouTube done here? And they removed it. So that was fine. So I've had no problems with any other music, but I mean that happened once. It could happen again, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Sure. And what's the thing with labels? That's a big, big, big story right now as well, because more and more artists coming out talking about really bad contracts with labels, and some artists don't have rights. I mean, majority of artists don't actually own their music. And do you think the change is necessary in that area, in that relationship between artists and labels? And how do you think it could be things could be better?
I mean, historically, musicians have been taken advantage of and treated badly for years. You know, ever since we were, you know, traveling bards and court jesters, you know, getting
Yeah.
pushed around by the royalty, you know, even going back then, not treated well. And it's the same thing today, you know, it's as if people find new ways over the centuries to treat musicians badly. And this is just one of the latest ones. So it's very unfortunate, but this is what happens when you go into business with these big corporations. You know,
You think it's
they
gonna
don't really
change?
care about you. No,
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 because
I don't.
Kanye West
No.
said he'll open like a label, and he'll let all music actually to for artists to own, all artists to own their own music. He wants to
Yeah,
change basically. But honestly, that's just one that was one tweet like half a year ago. So
yeah.
not
I mean,
sure.
maybe it will change for a little while. It will change for a little while, but eventually
At
that old
least
structure will come back.
at least I'm hoping he's a big name enough, and enough artists will go to his label then to make a change. In my opinion, that's only thing that could basically work, that he can pull on his name or something.
I don't know, maybe it would. I mean, that's what we all said about Netflix. We thought, oh, this is great. Instead of having, you know, a cable package, which is really
Mm.
expensive, you know, everything's just packaged on this one thing. And this is great. This has revolutionized it. And now all the content's divided out among 10 different streaming networks. It's basically cable again. And it's even
Yeah.
more expensive. So it's, you know, the revolution lasted 5 minutes there. And
Yeah.
so I feel like with music, unfortunately, um, could be the same.
uh, Hopefully not.
Hopefully not.
Okay, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What's the plans for your music, for yourself? You mentioned you're working on musical as well,
Mhm.
so you're broadening your hmm, let's say areas of working.
Mhm.
Have any other plans?
Big plans, big plans. So I mean, I've spent the majority of my 20s traveling around the UK playing gigs and recording albums and playing them to people and doing that, and now moving into YouTube. And I intend to keep doing all those things. But I'm trying to get my fingers into as many different pies as possible, because the more things you do as a musician, the better your chances of getting your music out there to more audiences, and the more revenue you can bring in for yourself. So I intend to do all of that, but uh, in doing all the music throughout my 20s, I've kind of put aside some of my other passions, which is filmmaking. And I really want to get back into doing that. At university I studied writing, and I got better as a lyricist, I think, because of that. But I also kind of developed my love of writing screenplays. And so one thing I wanted to do was find a way to marry those two passions, and to I thought, well, it's making a musical, isn't it? It's making my version of a musical. You know, lots of weird, quirky indie rock songs inside of some narrative, you know. So I've been working on it since 2013, and finally I cracked the story for it in November. So I'm moving into that, and I'm halfway through the first draft. I've got another half to go, and then once I've got a version of the script that's good, I'm going to start looking into crowdfunding. I'm going to try and make a segment of the script into a short film to show to people, to try to encourage them to donate to the project. And I'm going to push into that and try and do whatever I can to get it made. I've got some friends who are interested and hopefully going to be a part of it. And yeah, I really want to push into that and combine music with filmmaking, and again, hopefully reach a new audience, hopefully a bigger audience, and try different things out. And yes, I'm going to keep doing that and keep going with YouTube, because I think YouTube has a very big future. It's the TV of the internet, you know. Even though we have all these streaming channels, I think YouTube is such a big deal, and it's going to be around for a long time. So I'm in baby steps with it really at the moment. But I hope in 5 years I've got hopefully many more subscribers, and that the content is good, and hopefully we can get a big song on the radio. That would be great. I really want to do a big push for my Christmas song this year, and hopefully we didn't get to do it last year because everything was in lockdown. We wanted to do some gigs to support it and tour it, but it didn't happen. So hopefully this year we'll be allowed to do that. Let's just hope 5 years from now we're out of lockdown. I guess that's the main thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so nice. That's a lot of plans and a lot of good plans. Wish you luck with that. However, we are at the end. I got one more question for you. If you were in my shoes, what question would you ask yourself?
What question would I ask myself?
Yeah, that I didn't.
That you didn't. That's very hard. That's very hard. Trying to think. What question would I want to be asked? I'm trying to think, what would I be asking myself about? I don't know. What do I write about? I guess, talk about the lyrical,
right.
I guess I would. Yeah, I could just go on for days about my lyrics. Really, I probably could. I put lots of little details in there that I think are just for me. I don't know if anyone else realizes all the little things I'm putting in there, but I guess that's my little treat for now, until people discover the stuff I've put in there. Because there's lots of stuff I'm saying about myself that I've never said to anyone else that I've put in songs, and no one ever goes, hey, that thing that you mentioned there, what's that about? Yeah. No one ever does that. They just go, oh, that's a cool tune. Yeah. So
that's a good.
Yeah.
That's great. Anyways, thanks for joining me for this show. We are out about now. I know, like, for next time, hopefully we'll do it again. So I'll ask you more about I'll ask you more about the lyrics. Everything. Thanks for joining me, Scott. And
pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, Scott Freeman.
Cheers, guys.